Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. I'm here with a layout process video for you as part of the scraphappy.org membership group, where we do a challenge called the Layout a Day Challenge, where we scrapbook every day for a month. In case you don't already know, I've talked about it in the past. We have a theme for the month, which leads us into various prompts to tell our own stories with the fun of the theme in the background. So let's dive in. Our theme this month is Women of Pop, and we're talking today about Shakira and her philanthropy, as well as her body shaking moves. And so those are the inspiration pieces we're using for this layout. So I took the logos from various organizations that I have volunteered with throughout the years to talk about how I've been pretty much a lifelong volunteer somewhere, whether it's been with our own family projects or with the larger community like the Red Cross in general, and how we donate both time and money and try to be kind in all of these endeavors whenever we can. So I cut those apart, and I am going to be doing a very mixed media layout background, and I kind of showed you the supplies that I was going to be using leading up to this point. I am going to be doing the packaging technique on my background, and here I am making a complete and total mess. The spray bottle that I've been using for so many years, suddenly I'm finding that no matter what I do, it's like spraying inks everywhere. So I don't know if something is clogged in the spray bottle or I'm doing something. I don't know, but you'll see me switch to a different spray bottle a little bit later. And I'm just getting these stamping ink pads squished onto my mat, getting them wet with some water, and then picking up that inky goodness with this piece of leftover packaging and smushing it down to my project. I will give dries in between layers so that I can keep working without having to wait for things to dry. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my ink directly on the packaging because I wasn't getting quite as much color as I wanted. And here's where I switch to a different bottle. I just got this Spellbinders bottle based on some recommendations online, and it's very odd. It must have some reservoir or something that holds the water because you pump it and there's this slight delay, and then it has this sizzling mist to it, and you can hear this sizzling sound. So I don't know what the magic is in this bottle, but it has a very fine mist to it. It is taking me a little bit of time to get used to that delay, and you can squeeze it smaller or longer. But again, because you have that delay, then you have to wait for it to finish spraying. And so there is a bit of weird, quirky learning curve to this one. All right, so I've got that mixed media done up there at the top, and I'm doing something down here at the bottom that I've done in another way before, but I was feeling particularly lazy, so I'm just using the closed lid of my ink cubes to act as a stamp. And if you have a square stamp and you swirl it in a circular motion, you get a circular color blob. So that's what I'm doing. It's just sheer laziness. I wanted to get these little zones down at the bottom to hold some imagery from a bunch of the stamps that I pulled out that have to do with the theme of my page, which is this kind of volunteerism. What I'm doing now to my mixed media is adding layers. I'm going to keep adding layers and layers. This is a Hero Art stamp that is current on the market, and I can link it up to you below. I really like this one. It's got a very fine text print to it, and it's not in English. If it's in any particular language, I think it's just kind of gibberish, but it looks definitely like English writing in an old-fashioned kind of cursive font, but there's nothing readable to it, so it really just gives texture to the background, and I honestly really like a text print in the background, and sometimes I like a map print in the background, which I will add some of that to this. But this is another Hero Art stamp set that I'm using that has it's all about the mixed media backgrounds, really. It has some ledger prints, it has some squiggly prints, which I put on there already, and this one is a little bit of a map print. All right, with my mixed media done in the background, I am popping up all my photos on foam tape. I did pull out, shaker or fringe element was how we're incorporating the Shakira body moves into technique prompt. So I thought I was going to use a small shaker element for each of those circles down at the bottom of the page using some of those stamps as graphics for shakers. But I was running out of time and that wasn't going to work. So I'm just really quickly throwing on a little bit of fringe here. And so this kind of fringe was a little bit of an afterthought, but it's going to work. It'll be fine. And I love my fringe scissors. I don't use them all the time, but when I do use them, I'm like, yes, this makes fringing super easy. And so if you don't own a pair, I recommend it because it is an easy way to add texture to your page. And so there you go. I've got my fringe on there to meet the technique prompt. Now for load, you do not have to do the prompts. They are just fun and often they help spark stories for me. In particular, this was a story that I've kind of been meaning to tell for a while, but it just hasn't felt like it's had priority to be told. So when I've got the prompt to do this, that gives me the permission to go ahead and tell the story that I've been hanging on to for a while. All right, in the meantime, you can see I'm working on lettering, so I've got some title work to go on. These are Vicky Boutin alphas that were intended to be mixed media. And here you can see I have to Frankenstein a letter because I ran out of I's of all things. Usually I run out of E's, but here we go. I was out of I's, so I had to Frankenstein a letter. And because they were mixed media focused alphas, I thought I could just go direct to the product. No, that was way too dark. So I'm going to have to water this color down and go with a more of a watercolory look. And what I end up with ends up being pretty subtle and light, but that's okay because there's a lot of stuff going on the page. So it's going to work out okay. And here to dull the color down, I am spreading it out with my finger and there's a few extra drops of water on the mat. And that is enough just to dilute that color enough so that it doesn't totally take over the letters. And here you can see I've got a little bit of subtle color going on in different shades. So I'm getting a little bit of greens from the mixing of colors, and I've got some reds and blues and so on. Wait, no, green was one of my actual colors, so the green is in there without being mixed. All right, I am going to get all that in place, and then I will set up a longer subtitle with these smaller letters. And it's funny, right now I am really enjoying this kind of tannish gray color. And I go through color fads, I guess. I've been on navy for quite a while. Now this grayish tan color is here. So yeah, I'm going through another color fad with this one. And I'm surprised at how many of these supplies in this color I have in my stash. So that's kind of fun. All right, so I am moving down to those bottom zones, and instead of making those little shakers like I thought I would do, I thought each of these stamps would be the front decoration on a shaker window, and that there would be a clear acetate layer of shaker all the way through so that you could see to that stamping in the background with the icon stamping in the foreground on top of the acetate. That is difficult to do with different colors. Maybe heat embossing or something like that could work, but I switched it up because, like I said, I was running out of time, and that allows me to use more colors on this. And so I pulled out my newest favorite tool, which is this stamping platform by Sizzix. And I love this because I can get my 12 by 12 papers inside of it, and none of the other stamping platforms that I have researched. There is a Misty stamping platform that fits 12 by 12, but you can't hang it over the edge easily because when you close the lid on the Misty, there's a rim around the edge and it kind of squishes your paper down. So this stamping platform is turning out to be a great thing for stamping on scrapbook pages. And so, oops, there we go. It dropped a piece there. At any rate, I'm doing all of the stamping, including doing a little bit of masking. Now, if you're normally a scrapbooker and you don't do stamping in your projects, you may not know about masking, where you stamp an image and then you cover it up with the exact image that has been cut out. I use masking paper that's just slightly tacky. It's kind of like a Post-it note, and it covers up the whole image and stays in place while you stamp over the top. And we'll get to that just a little bit more as I use that little stamping mask that I've set aside. In the meantime, I'm trying to pick colors, layer up colors on top of this background that are all going to work. Because I hadn't planned it to be stamped in color over the top, I'm trying some things here, and most of it works out fine. I did end up with two dark blues next to each other, and I was really trying to spread them out, but, you know, that's how it goes. So yes, I am just thinking about colors as I go, and I like that I can have all these stamps on my platform at the same time. They're far enough apart that I can ink up each one with its own color. I don't have to worry about them getting in the way of each other. And then here I am thinking about, I've got some of the stamping in place, and now that I see those colors, my mind is having an easier time on settling on the other colors. And here's where I decide, even though these blues are adjacent to each other, I'm just going to be good with it and let it go. So you can see here how even with the big ink pads, these are far enough apart that I can go ahead and ink up whatever colors I want and then keep moving on. And I can add multiple layers to these, like my little heart stamp on the end, because it's red on top of a darker gray brown. It was having a hard time showing up. So I had to do multiple layers to get that one there. However, right now I am moving back to that masking. So I have this little envelope with hearts theme going on over here, and I cover up the masking, or the first stamp that I did, and I stamped over it with more stamping. And as you can see, that first stamp now sits in the foreground of the image, and I will just save that mask to use in the future anytime I use that stamp set. So that's a little trick on stamp masking if you don't ever stamp on your scrapbook layouts. Now I am adding a finishing border to this layout. Normally I would add a border all the way around, but because I have that row of graphics down there, that gave me an idea to do a different style of border, which is a full ruler's width, which is probably at least an inch away from the edge. And I didn't quite plan it out that way, so it got really close to my graphics, but that's okay. Oh, here I had made a mistake and gone over. Whenever I do that and I'm working on white paper, I can just kind of, quote unquote, erase that with a white pen, and it often needs a couple of layers. So that was just the first layer, and I will add some more layers to that erasure as that white gel pen, or this is a paint pen. As that dries, I can add more layers. All right, and then I add in my own hand-drawn line on top of that. I like to have at least one very straight line so that it sets the form of the border, and then I like to doodle an extra line on top of that. And I'm using that as a holding place for my journaling, since there's not a lot of other room on this layout, and that is great for doing with these mixed media pages, adding that border and using it to hold journaling. So that wraps up this layout for this time around. I hope you enjoyed my mixed media process. I hope you got some stamping tips, and I will be back soon with more crafty videos for you. Until then, I hope you have an artful day.